الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح للأمة وجاهد في الله حق جهاده حتى أتاه اليقين عليه من ربه أفضل الصلاة والتسليم وبعد. Now we mentioned before in our previous classes something about the history of this subject matter and those who wrote about it as it pertains the istiqra' of the ulama, the scholarly analysis of the text in identifying the core of faith and the details of the core of faith. And the core of faith, what is meant by the asl of iman, is the shahadatain, you could say. As Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, He said, أَلَمْ تَرَى كَيْفَ ضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا كَلِمَةً طَيِّبَةً كَشَجَرَةٍ طَيِّبَةٍ أَصْلُهَا ثَابِتٌ وَفَرْعُهَا فِي السَّمَاءِ. Don't you see that Allah has provided and set forth a parable of the goodly word? It is like a goodly tree. The goodly word, the statement La ilaha illallah, is like a good tree, the date palm tree. أَصْلُهَا ثَابِتٌ وَفَرْعُهَا فِي السَّمَاءِ. Then Allah explains three things connected to this method, and this metaphor or this parable or this similitude. The first is that it has an asl, it has a core. Some of the scholars, they say, some of the Sahaba and some of the Tabi'een and Abdullah ibn Mubarak and others, the Tabi'een, they said that the asl is kalimat al-tawheed. It's a statement of al-tawheed. It is the shahada and la ilaha illallah, and everything else branches off from that or are the fruits of it. So as a core, وَفَرْعُهَا فِي السَّمَاءِ has its roots, and the asl, meaning its uruq and its saq, the scholars say, its roots and its trunk is the asl. In this metaphor of the tree, and that is the core of faith. The core of faith, and which are the beliefs of the Muslim, which are the actualization or the details of the statement La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. And all of Aqidah is tawqifiyya, and it stems off of belief in Allah and the oneness of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, and believing about Allah according to what the Prophet ﷺ came with of Kitab and Sunnah. And so it is, and all of Aqidah goes back to the Shahadatain. All of Aqidah goes back to the Shahadatain. And more specifically, it goes back to at-tasdeeq wal-inqiyad. As much as that one Shahada has more to do with worshipping Allah with sincerity, which is an inqiyad, and compliance with sincerity. And one Shahada, which is the Shahada that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, and meaning that the source of the religion is what came from Allah to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the Quran and the Sunnah, which is tasdeeq. And the words that are most often used to describe Islam are Islam and Iman. And Islam is inqiyad. And it is that a person submits to Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. And a tasdeeq, belief, and he is more connected to an iman. Together, and they mean separate things, and apart they mean each other. And they are a description of all of Islam. So all of Islam is described with these terms that go back to a single concept that are the core faith. At-tasdeeq wal-inqiyad. At-tasdeeq wal-inqiyad. Belief and compliance. One of these is called the statement of the heart. And that is at-tasdeeq, belief, which is knowledge and certainty. And the other is called the action of the heart. The action of the heart, and that is inqiyad. And what is connected to it of mahabba, and ikhlas, and what is connected to it of love, and sincerity, and qabool, and acceptance, and by extension a sidq, and being truthful in one's utterance of the statement La ilaha illallah. So the first to write, as was mentioned before, these exact details in this way was the eminent scholar, and we provided one of the places in his writings because he mentions this in two of his treatises that are found in his collection of writings that are an individual collection of the writings and the fatawa of the ulama, Dawat al-Salafiyya and Najdiyya. There's also likewise found the book Ad-Durar al-Saniyya, which is a longer book that contains the writings of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab and his children and his children's children and their students. Was this great scholar Abdurrahman ibn Hassan al-Shaykh. Abdurrahman ibn Hassan al, from the family of al-Shaykh, of the Shaykh, being Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, rahmatullahi alayhi, is Abdurrahman ibn Hassan ibn Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. Abdurrahman ibn Hassan ibn Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, rahimahullah ta'ala. And he writes in his book Fath al-Majid, the best explanation, Kitab al-Tawheed, these 7 conditions, with their evidences that are the further details of saying that the core of Islam and the bare minimum to be a Muslim is believing in all that Allah revealed, that it is the truth from Allah, even if there are things you don't understand, that you believe that that is from Allah, is the truth from Allah. Everything in the Quran, the Sunnah is the truth from Allah. And complying with all the commandments, even if you don't do them, that you comply with them, that you accept them, you don't reject them, and you know that you must comply with them. That you know that you must comply with them. As for a person being negligent thereafter and acting upon what they know, then this is where Iman increases and decreases, but the core faith is there. And that is because everything in Islam, and pay attention to this point, everything in Islam is either information or laws. Information from Allah and from the Prophet ﷺ, yuqabalu, must be met with a tasdeeq, with belief. It must be met with belief. And laws must be met with and responded to with inqiyad, with submission and compliance. And there is a very important issue with Ahl Sunnah that is called at-talazum bayna al-zahiri wal-batin, the inseparable connection between what is on the inside and what is on the outside. So as we said, that faith has these components of statement and action, and the core of faith is the statement of the heart and the action of the heart. The statement of the heart and the action of the heart. The statement of the heart is its beliefs. The action of the heart is its compliance. It's compliance. And so there are other concepts at play here that are just giving us the further details of that. So belief comes as a result of knowledge, and kamalul ilm, and having complete knowledge of something, as opposed to just generic or general vague knowledge about something that doesn't reach a level of certainty. So you have knowledge and certainty, and over the last 2 classes we discussed in some detail what knowledge is, what is meant by knowledge, that it is knowledge of the meaning of what you are affirming and what you are negating, what is meant by uluhiyah and what is meant by ubudiyah, what is meant by divinity and godhood, which are all the perfect attributes of Allah, on account of which He deserves to be worshipped, that you single out Allah with that alone, and that the result of that is servitude and worship for Allah, the highest level of love, the highest level of veneration for Allah. Another word that is used for veneration is compliance. Right? It's compliance. And that is done sincerely for Allah, Tabarak wa Ta'ala, and it is done lovingly. And it is done lovingly, which are 2 of the other conditions of the Shahada and La Ilaha illallah, which are from me, and it is something that develops out of and emanates out of acceptance. So as a person accepts what they know and are certain of, that La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, then they accept it. And there are different orders and sequences, and it's all a matter of perspective. After knowledge and certainty. Knowledge and certainty are definitely the first 2. But then after that, it's a matter of perspective. I mean, what do you say is the third? What do you say is the fourth? So on and so forth. Because the other 5 things, they are all connected to each other. They are all connected to compliance. They're all connected to compliance. So acceptance, compliance, sincerity, love, and saying it truthfully with genuineness, without having ulterior motives and so on and so forth, and why you are a Muslim. And so you have al-ikhlas and sidq together, and they are always mentioned together by the scholars. Al-ikhlas was sidq, sincerity and trueness or truthfulness. The opposite of sincerity is shirk. It's polytheism. The opposite of sidq in the Kitab and the Sunnah and the Arabic language is al-kadhib, which is the which is the pillar upon which nifaq sprouts. The tree of nifaq is built upon kadhib, the entirety of nifaq. That's why the Prophet ﷺ and his companions and the early Salaf, there are multiple reports that say that it is possible and al-mu'min yutba' ala al-khilali kulliha. It's possible that a believer can have every imaginable bad characteristic except for al-kadhib wal-khiyana, al-kadhib wal-khadi'a, except for lying, dishonesty, treachery, and trickery. Because that is antithetical to Islam. If Islam is built upon truthfulness and speaking the truth and spreading the message of truth and spreading the truth that was revealed for the guidance of mankind, that lying is one of the most destructive traits a person can have, and is one of the most antithetical traits that a person can have that can lead him away from Iman. And the same can be said about al-khiyana or al-khadi'a, any trickery and treachery. Because the laws of Islam are fulfilling the rights of people and fulfilling the amanat. So kadhib goes against correct information, any truthful information. And kadhib, being lying, goes against the truth. And al-khadi'a and al-khiyana goes against al-adl, and it goes against justice and the laws that are found in the religion. So there's nothing more devastating to a person's iman than his having these characteristics and finding it easy for himself to be a liar and a treacherous person. So we have here And you can see in your own time, I posted on Telegram one of the places in which Abdurrahman ibn Hassan al-Shaykh, rahmatullahi alayhi, discusses the 7 conditions of La ilaha illallah, to show you that the scholars mention different sequences. Even here, he mentions a different order than he mentions in Fathul Majid. But the first 2 generally are knowledge and certainty. Knowledge and certainty, that's a matter of perspective, what comes after that. And so the order that we're using is what is found with Hafiz al-Hakami in his poetry, in his book, in his poem Sulam al-Wusul, and that is found in his explanation of that Ma'arij al-Qabul, and that is found likewise in the book Miftah Dar al-Salam bi Tahqiq Shahadatay al-Islam, that we are reading from, and we are on page 20 of the resource if you have the PDF resource in front of you. And he lists al-Qabul as the 3rd condition. Al-Qabul, which is acceptance, as the 3rd condition. The word Qabul, which means acceptance, has larger import than just acceptance of a thing, right? Another word that you can use for Qabul to help you understand it is your receptiveness. Receptiveness. So acceptance, the person's degree of receptiveness. And he has to have the bare minimum degree of receptiveness. This is very important to know because, just as knowledge, فَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٍ, is on darajat. Knowledge is on different levels. The first of the conditions of La ilaha illallah, knowledge of what it means, is on different levels. Just as we highlighted last week, that certainty is also on different levels. Then acceptance and receptiveness is on different levels, as we'll see here. A person's receptiveness to it, the degree to which their heart can accommodate the truth, and that they are receptive to the truth, and that they are like a sponge absorbing knowledge. It's on different levels. That's on different levels. On different levels likewise. The opposite of al-Qabul can be said to be a number of things. Opposite of al-Qabul generally is al-i'rad. It's disinterest and turning away. Disinterest and turning away. So a person may know the truth, and a person may be certain that it is the truth. However, they're not interested. They're not interested. And if there is something in between them, it could be kibr, it could be arrogance, it could be conceit, it could be laziness. Be a long list of things. And Ibn Qayyim, he mentions 10 of those things in his book Hidayat al-Hayara fi Ajwibat al-Yahud wa Nasara. And he says, unfortunately, the most common of these things is ar-rukun ila da'ati wa raha wa awa'id al-nas. And he is that a person is cultured. And he is cultured. And that a person doesn't want to make waves. And they just want to keep things copacetic, right? They incline towards a da'a, and being relaxed and being calm and so on and so forth. They don't want to upset anybody. And so they just stay stuck on stupid with everybody else. This is something that he highlights in multiple places in his writings as one of the greatest one of the greatest obstacles in the path of truth, and his culture and the customs of the people and so on and so forth, and not wanting to make waves, and want everything to just be kumbaya, and everything just being even keel with people and not disturbing the status quo and that sort of thing. And this is something that is a human condition, even amongst Muslims. People have biases, people they have the way that they are, and people don't like to rock the boat, even if people are upon clear falsehood or oppression and that sort of thing. And you will find many sycophants and many yes men, and who will compromise in their religion, so on and so forth, just to be accepted. And so acceptance of the truth sometimes brings unwarranted attention to a person. Sometimes it brings discomfort to a person. So some people, they know the truth, they are certain, they have conviction that it's the truth. However, their acceptance of it is something different. So acceptance is one of the actions of the heart. It's how a person responds to what they know. It's the action of the heart that leads a person to inqiyad, and that results in inqiyad, in a person complying with the truth and acting upon it. So he says here, القبول لها المنافي لرد مدلولها. The third condition is the acceptance of it, of this testimony, which is contrary to rejecting its meaning. Allah Ta'ala, Allah exalted be He the Most High. He says, إِنَّمَا يُؤْمِنُ بِآيَاتِنَا الَّذِينَ إِذَا ذُكِّرُوا بِهَا خَرُّوا سُجَّدًا وَسَبَّحُوا بِحَمْدِ رَبِّهِمْ وَهُمْ لَا يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ. Only those believe in our verses and our signs who, when they are reminded of them, fall down in prostration and exalt Allah with praise of their Lord, and they are not arrogant. So the evidence that he brings here, and he is to show the submissiveness of the believers when they are reminded of the ayat of Allah, the revelation of Allah Ta'ala, that it causes them to fall into prostration. It's humility. They comply out of humility. وَسَبَّحُوا بِحَمْدِ رَبِّهِمْ وَهُمْ لَا يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ. And they exonerate Allah from defect and imperfection and praise Allah out of reverence and love. وَهُمْ لَا يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ. And they are not arrogant. And they are not arrogant. He said, وَالْآيَاتُ هُنَا الْمُرَادُ بِهَا الْقُرْآنُ وَمُعْظَمُهَا فِي حَقِّ هَذِهِ الْكَلِمَةِ. Here what is referred to by ayat, by the verses in this statement, the verses in the ayah, is in reference to the Quran. Because ayat can mean the universal evidences of Allah, it can mean the universe around us, it can mean proof of the truth, so on and so forth. But what is meant by ayat here is the Quran, with this emphasis on the statement, meaning the emphasis of the Quran, مُعْظَمُهُ فِي حَقِّ هَذِهِ الْكَلِمَةِ, emphasizes this statement, La ilaha illallah. Emphasizes the statement, La ilaha illallah. The Quran, كُلُّهُ فِي التَّوْحِيدِ. As the scholars have explained in detail, everything in the Quran goes back to Tawheed. وَذُكِّرُوا وَوُعِظُوا وَهُمْ لَا يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ أي عَنَ الْإِيمَانِ بِاللَّهِ وَطَاعَتِهِ. So they, the believers, they are reminded and admonished. And they are not arrogant when they are reminded and admonished. That is, they are not arrogant regarding belief in Allah and obedience to Allah. They are not too arrogant to believe in Allah or to obey Allah. Tabarak wa ta'ala. وذلك هو حقيقة التأله المنفي عن سوى الله إلى إله المثبت له سبحانه وتعالى بإلا الله. He says, and that is the reality of a ta'alluh, of deification, and recognizing the sole right of Allah to be worshipped. That is negated for anything other than Allah when a person says La ilaha in the statement La ilaha illallah, that there is no other deity in truth. That is affirmed for Allah alone by a person saying Illallah, Illallah. So a person is not too arrogant to accept that. وَلَا رَدَّ أَعْظَمْ مِنَ الْإِسْتِكْبَارِ. And there is no greater rejection than meeting and responding to La ilaha illallah with istikbar, with arrogance. وَلِهَذَا, and for this reason, قال الله تعالى في حق من ردها بعد أن ذكر ما وعدهم به من العذاب أنهم كانوا إذا قيل لهم لا إله إلا الله يستكبرون. For this reason, Allah said about those who rejected it after He mentioned the punishment promised to them, that they were arrogant when it was said to them, La ilaha illallah, that there is no true deity other than Allah, meaning nothing worthy of worship other than Allah. And they said, أَإِنَّ لَتَارِكُ آلِهَتِنَا لِشَاعِرٍ مَجْنُونَ. And they said, are we to abandon our gods for a mad poet, for an insane poet? فَلَمْ يَتْرُكُوا آلِهَتَهُمْ الْمَنْفِيَةِ إِلَى إِلَهَ وَلَمْ يَقْبَلُوا إِثْبَاتَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. So they did not make tark of what they should have made tark of. They did not abandon their gods that are negated by a person saying that there is no other deity. And they did not accept, it's the opposite of a tark, and of abandoning is accepting. They did not accept the affirmation that is found in the statement illallah, to solely, exclusively assign this right to Allah, of godhood and worship to Allah. Tabarak wa ta'ala. فقال الله تعالى تكذيبا لهم وتصديقا لنبيه صلى الله عليه وسلم. And so Allah, after that, He denied their claims, and He confirmed His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as being truthful, saying, عز وجل بل جاء بالحق وصدق المرسلين. Rather, He, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, has come with the truth, and He confirmed the previous messengers, meaning the messages of the previous messengers who all called to La ilaha illallah. وفي الصحيح عن أبي موسى الأشعري رضي الله عنه. In the Sahih of Imam Muslim, from the hadith of Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, مثل ما بعثني الله به من الدين والعلم. The wording of Imam Muslim, that is مثبت من الهدى والعلم. The example, the likeness, or the similitude, or the parable, what Allah has sent me with of the religion and knowledge, and the wording of Imam Muslim is of guidance and knowledge. كمثل الغيث الكثير أصاب أرضا, is like al-ghayth al-kathir, is like abundant ghayth, which is rainwater. There are many words in the Arabic language, which is the most eloquent language for rainwater, and this is one of them. The word ghayth was different between ghayth and matar, regular rainwater, and ghayth. It's a word ghayth, and it has the meaning of that which is direly needed. Al-ghawth, and he is that which is turned to in recourse. A person makes istighatha to Allah, tabarak wa ta'ala, seeking deliverance and rescue from Allah. So it is direly needed, desperately needed rainfall. So the Prophet ﷺ here is saying that the religion and knowledge is like abundant, desperately needed rainfall. Asaba arda, that fell upon a portion of land, upon a portion of soil, upon a portion of the earth. وأصاب منها نقية فكان منها نقية قبلت الماء فانبتت الكلى والعشب الكثير. Some of it fell upon نقية, and a portion of soil that is نقية. The word naqa, naqi, something that is said to be naqi, something that is clean and pure, meaning that there is no weeds, there is no filth, there are no toxins, nothing that's going to stop the soil from being fertile. So it is fertile soil. قبلت الماء فانبتت الكلى والعشب الكثير. Look at the word. It absorbed the water. قبلت, from the word قبول. قبلت, it absorbed. So some hearts are like that. Whenever knowledge and guidance and the religion comes to it, they are receptive. They don't have any taraddud. They don't have any hesitancy. The truth is not inconvenient for them. They do not get hung up by their desires and their ambitions and so on and so forth. قبلت الماء فانبتت الكلى والعشب الكثير. They readily accept and absorb the rainwater. فانبتت الكلى والعشب الكثير, and produce abundant herbage and grass. الكلى والعشب الكثير. And a lot of kala and ushb, a lot of grass, but a lot of foliage and greenery and so on and so forth grows as a result of it. وأصاب منها أجادب أمسكت الماء فنفع الله به الناس فشربوا وسقى وزرعوا. Another some of the rain fell upon another portion of land that was hard. It was firm land. But because it was firm, it's not necessarily fertile soil, but it was able to retain and hold the water. It was hard, firm, as opposed to the water just sinking into the ground. Many places in the earth there are deserts. You see, there are deserts with oceans under the ground, with reservoirs of water under the ground for their societies. There are people who live in the deserts, they dig wells, or they dig very deep into the earth, are able to extract water out of the earth. But this water is not like that. That's not where it fell, where it just sinks low into the ground and is lost. But the water fell upon hard soil, upon hard land, so it pulled up into ponds or into puddles or into lakes or this sort of thing. It fell into hard soil. فَنَفَعَ اللَّهُ بِهِ النَّاسِ, benefiting the people. Allah benefited the people with it. فَشَرِبُوا وَسَقَى وَزَرَعُوا, and so they drank and they watered and irrigated their crops, and they were able to plant. So they drank وَسَقَى وَزَرَعُوا, and they were able to provide water for their animals, and they were able to use it to irrigate the water to their crops and so on and so forth. وَأَصَابَ مِنْهَا طَائِفَةً أُخْرَى إِنَّمَا هِيَ قِيعَانٍ. Some of it fell upon a different portion of soil that was قِيعَان, a wasteland. Fell upon a wasteland, a worthless piece of earth. لَا تُمْسِكُ مَاءً وَلَا تُنْبِتُ كَلًا. It could not accept and retain and hold the water. وَلَا تُنْبِتُ كَلًا. Nor could it grow any vegetation or foliage or herbs or herbage or anything of the sort. فَذَلِكَ مَثَلُ مَنْ فَقُهَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ. فَذَلِكَ مَثَلُ مَنْ فَقُهَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ. That is the parable of the one فَقُهَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ. Who فَقُهَ is the verb form of fiqh in the past tense. فَقُهَ, who understood. The difference, As-Sam'ani rahimahullah ta'ala in Qawati al-Adillah, Shafi, Salafi scholar, his book on Usul Fiqh, he said the difference between understanding al-fahm and fiqh is that fiqh is a deep understanding. It's a substantive understanding that has an impact and effect on a person. As opposed to a person just having basic common sense understanding. That is a parable of the person who has meaningful understanding and insight about the religion of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. فَذَلِكَ مَثُلَ مَنْ فَقَهَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ فَنَفَعُهُ مَا, it says here, مَا بَشَّرَ اللَّهُ بِهِ, the wording of Imam Muslim says, مَا بَعَثَنِي اللَّهُ بِهِ. And he is benefited with what Allah has given glad tidings of in this wording here. And the wording of Imam Muslim, rahimahullah ta'ala, as most common, is that which Allah sent me with. فَعَلِمَ وَعَلَّمَ. And so he had knowledge, he learned, وَعَلَّمَ, and he taught knowledge to others. وَمَثَلُ مَنْ لَمْ يَرْفَعْ بِذَلِكَ رَأَسَهُ. As opposed to the person, لَمْ يَرْفَعْ بِذَلِكَ رَأَسَهُ, the person of i'rad, the person who could care less. أي لا يتعلم ولا يعمل بمقتضاه. He neither learned in a meaningful way, nor he didn't care to learn, nor did he act upon that knowledge. One or the other. Both of them are i'rad. The person didn't care to learn to begin with, so he didn't accept it. Or he knew better, and he was certain of it. وَجَاهَدُوا بِهَا وَاسْتَيْقَنَتْهَا أَنفُسُهُمْ ظُلْمًا وَعُلُوًّا. Allah described the destroyed nations when he said that they rejected it, although despite the fact that أَسْتَيْقَنَتْهَا أَنفُسُهُمْ, that their hearts were certain of it, that they were certain of it in their heart of hearts, ظُلْمًا وَعُلُوًّا, and they only rejected it out of dhulm, out of oppressiveness and wrongfulness, and out of ulu, out of conceitedness and exalting themselves above the truth. He said, and so this is the likeness of what Allah sent me with, and He caused a person to benefit by what He sent me with. So he learned and he knew, as opposed to the person لم يرفع بذلك رأسا, who never lifted their head and showed any concern or care. ولم يقبل هدى الله ولم يقبل. They did not make قبول, لم يقبل. Did not accept the guidance of Allah الذي أرسلت به, that I have been sent with, with which I was sent. فانظر هذا الحديث واعتبر به فهو عبرة لأولي الأبصار. الشيخ علامة حافظ بن أحمد بن علي الهكمي rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, after mentioning the hadith, so look at this hadith and take consideration of it and take lesson from it. It is a lesson from those with insight. If a person looks closely, فَإِنَّكَ إِذَا أَمْعَنْتَ النَّظْرَ فِيهِ, because if you look closely at this hadith, you'll see رَأَيْتُهُ يَحْتَوِي عَلَى مَا لَمْ يَتَّسِعْ لَهُ الْمُجَلَّدَاتُ الْكِبَارُ. You see that it contains information beyond what volumes can encompass. And it contains what volumes of information cannot encompass. Meaning that if a person was to truly explain this hadith, that explains the levels of people when it comes to knowledge of the religion and how they are benefited from that knowledge, as is explained in great detail by the scholars, like Imam Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala in his book At-Tibyan fi Ayman al-Quran, and like the great Imam Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali rahimahullah ta'ala in his explanation of the hadith of Abu Darda about Warathat al-Anbiya, the inheritors of the prophets, that people are on different levels when it comes to knowledge. Some people, their hearts are deep and wide, and they can accommodate a great deal of knowledge and are very receptive to knowledge. And they never get there full of knowledge. Some people, their hearts are tight and constricted. Some people, their hearts are like oceans. Some people, their hearts are like puddles. And some people aren't even like that. It goes in one ear and goes out the it comes in one ear and goes out the other. And now it goes in one ear and it goes out the other. These are the levels of people between al-qabul and al-i'rad. And the greatest cause of misguidance of the nations was not that they didn't know, not that the hujjah hadn't been established upon them, and that in their heart of hearts, when the revelation came, or was explained to them, and when their prophets were patient with them and taught them, and when miracles were shown to them, that they did not have conviction and certainty and knowledge about the truth, but rather it was this matter, this third matter of al-i'rad, al-tawalli. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala explains in Shifa al-Aliyan, when we look at all of the words that are used in the Quran for the covering that is placed over the hearts of people and the eyes of people and the hearing of people and so on and so forth, that obstruct people from the truth, that it all goes back to the singular concept, which is their tawalli an al-haq, their turning away from the truth. Whoever turns away from the truth after knowing the truth, then it is from the justice of Allah tabaraka ta'ala, and yuwalihim atawallaw li anfusihim, that He leaves them to what they chose for their own self. He leaves them to their own devices, while yuslihim jahannam wa sa'at masira, and He places them in the hellfire. What a horrible destination. والمقصود هنا أن المثلين الأولين لمن قبل هدى الله الذي هذه الكلمة أصله وإن كانوا على درجتين متفاوتتين. And he says the point here is that the first two examples are for those who accepted the guidance of Allah, of which this statement, La ilaha illallah, is the basis of the religion. Goes back to the statement, La ilaha illallah, even though they are on two different levels in their receptiveness. The scholars say, who explain this hadith, most of them say that what is the difference between the first and the second and their degree of receptiveness is that some people, they are wu'atul ilm, and they are vessels of understanding, that they retain the knowledge, they understand the knowledge at a surface level, at its apparent meaning, and they accept it, and they comply with it. and they comply with it. Even if they fall short in it, they know in their heart of hearts that it must be complied with. They don't reject any commandment or any information that Allah sent. As opposed to the second category of people, who Allah has blessed with exceptional insight and exceptional understanding, who can make istinbat, who can derive the rulings and the deeper meanings out of the text based on knowledge of the Arabic language and its intricacies, and based on knowledge of the wisdoms of the religion, and having a broad overview of the sciences of Islam and so on and so forth, that they are able to extrapolate and pull. And this is what we find in the history of Islam. You find, even amongst the people of knowledge, that they are on two levels. Those who are hafadhatul ilm, those who are the memorizers of knowledge, the memorizers of hadith. And so they reported and memorized hadith and wrote down hadith. And their reports were accepted. And as a person in the chain of narration, their report was accepted. Then you had people who are fuqaha, people who could take those hadith from the imams of hadith and fiqh and show you what those hadith are proof for and how they apply to things directly and indirectly, implicitly and explicitly, and by extension, what these evidences can be used for. To take the real life situations and problems of people and to solve them with what Allah said and what the Prophet ﷺ said. So there is no doubt that the person who hears something, retains what they know, and conveys what they know, as the Prophet ﷺ, he said, نَظَرَ اللَّهُ امْرَأً سَمِعَ مِنِّي مَقَالَتِي. May Allah brighten the face of a man who hears a statement of mine, فَوَعَاهَا فَبَلَّغَهُ كَمَا سَمِعَهُ. And he retains what he heard, memorizes it, either in writing or memory. He retains what he heard, and he conveys it just like you heard it. فَرُبَّ حَامِلِ الْفِقْهِ لَيْسَ بِفَقِيهٍ. Perhaps a person who is carrying that knowledge himself is not faqih. Is not a person who has deep understanding. وَرُبَّ حَمَلَ الْفِقْهِ إِلَّا مَنْ هُوَ أَفْقَهُ مِنْهُ. Perhaps he will carry that knowledge as somebody who will understand it better than he understood. Perhaps he will be a teacher of somebody who will understand it better than him. This is how scholars were raised in the Ummah. Between those who taught them in the Kuttab, who taught them Alif, Ba, Ta, how to read the Quran, who taught them Arabic grammar, the Arabic language and Arabic syntax, and so on and so forth, who taught them Qusar al-Suwar, the short chapters in the Quran, and then moved into the longer chapters, the intermediate chapters, and then moved into the longest of the chapters, and then moved into the ahadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then gave them the tools of understanding that have been passed down by the scholars to understand the religion generation by generation in its beliefs and its laws, and then showed them in character how you ought to be, and passed down in character and in morals and ethics how the comportment of the scholars should be, so they cannot just know but act like people who know. By having a team of people like that, teamwork makes the dream work, right? Having a team of people that they learn from in their land and then outside of their land, traveling to seek knowledge, scholars are built, one person at a time. Who shares in the reward? All of them. Their parents, their teachers, all of them share in the reward of building up a scholar. May Allah make us better and help us. So people are on different levels when it comes to knowledge, and their level of what? Of qabul. There's general qabul ijmali, any general acceptance of the truth when it comes to you. The most important truth being La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. And then the level of receptiveness, or the level of disinterest, and it varies from person to person. And when you get into the further details of the religion, or persons accepting the religion at all. He said, and so, al-mathal al-thalith, the third example here, لمن لم يرفع بذلك رأسا ولم يقبله فلم ينتفع هو ولم ينفع غيره. It's a person who paid him no mind. He did not literally, لَمْ يَرْفَعْ بِذَلِكَ رَأْسًا. They never lifted up their head. The way that any person gets knowledge is not by osmosis. A person gets knowledge by their eyes and their ears, by reading knowledge or hearing knowledge, and by the written word or the spoken word. That's how knowledge is conveyed. So if a person never lifts up their head, then their eyes and their ears were never engaged, meaning their eyes and their ears were never engaged. They never read or listened to the truth. In a way, they may have heard it, but they weren't listening. They may have saw it, but they didn't care. They were oblivious or they were apathetic or so on and so forth. That is the third type of person as mentioned in the hadith. وَلَمْ يَقْبَلْهُ. He didn't accept it. He didn't make qabul of it. He didn't accept it. فَلَمْ يَنْتَفِعْ هُوَ وَلَمْ يَنْفَعْ غَيْرَهُ. So he didn't benefit himself with it. He himself did not benefit from it. Nor did he benefit anyone else with it. Nor did he benefit anyone else with it. بَلْ هُوَ ضَرَرٌ مَحْضٌ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ وَعَلَى غَيْرِهِ. But rather, he is a pure harm for himself and for others. Because he didn't accept the truth. But they were a pure harm to themselves and for others. The person who doesn't have the truth, cannot speak the truth, cannot want the good for themselves because he doesn't know the good. He is ضَرَرٌ مَحْضٌ. He said he is a pure harm for عَلَى نَفْسِهِ, to himself, وَعَلَى غَيْرِهِ, and to others. And Allah's refuge is sought. And Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala make us from those that the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam described when he said in the hadith of Anas ibn Malik, إِنَّ مِنَ النَّاسِ نَاسًا مَفَاتِيحَ لِلْخَيْرِ مَغَارِقَ لِلشَّرِّ. Indeed, there are some people who are keys to the good, who lock away and prevent harm from people. وَإِنَّ مِنَ النَّاسِ نَاسًا مَغَارِقَ لِلْخَيْرِ مَفَاتِيحَ لِلشَّرِّ. Some people, they are keys that prevent others from goodness and lock up the goodness, and they are keys that open up the evil for others. فَطُوبَ لِمَنْ جَعَلَ اللَّهُ مَفَاتِيحَ الْخَيْرِ عَلَى يَدَيْهِ. So all goodness, tuba, is in store for the person that Allah has placed the keys of good in his hands. وَوَيْلٌ لِمَنْ جَعَلَ اللَّهُ مَفَاتِيحَ الشَّرِّ عَلَى يَدَيْهِ. And woe be to the person who Allah has given the keys to evil to. Allah has made as a trial and a calamity for others. هذا وصلى الله وسلم. May Allah make us a key for the good. We ask Allah to raise the mention of اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على عبدك ورسولك نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.